Okay, Slavery by Another Name, Douglas Blackmon, Part 2. Now, we've talked about convict leasing, that this book actually brings in northern companies. So this is not just a southern dynamic. Us from the north we know that it was uh, prejudice and racism all over the country. But living in Texas, I hear a lot of people that think that this was a southern thing. And now apparently it wasn't as bad in the north, but it was bad in the north. And Douglas Blackmon actually brings out that the people in the north, or the businesses in the north, weren't weren't above benefiting from slavery, and had pointed out that large companies had subsidiary companies in the South that dealt with labor, particularly coal mines and iron mines, that used arrested blacks to continue doing their work for them. So I would imagine during slavery, it's reasonable to believe that they actually had slaves doing it. That's why I actually say that this leaves it to reason that Andrew Carnegie benefited directly from slavery as well. But to get back on track with the book, in this book is based in Alabama in 1908, and it gets into how convict leasing actually worked, which is sick. It really kind of makes you mad. Now they knew, the South, when I say they, the South, the business owners, they knew that their workforce was about to leave immediately. They saw that they were losing the war. They knew that slavery was the issue at hand, and this was not a moral issue. This was not an issue that slavery was wrong. This was an economic issue. The South had an economy based on slavery, thanks to Andrew Jackson. Andrew Jackson extended slavery with the Trail of Tears when he took over all of that land from the Native Americans, made them move by gunpoint. Many of them died on the way or when they got there, and created vast cotton lands that made the industry explode again. So the Southern economy was built on agriculture and producing raw materials for industrialized nations, which was basically going over to Europe in the transatlantic economy. But the industrialization or the Industrial Revolution that began in Europe actually came over to northern United States, where the economy of the northern United States was not built on agriculture or raw materials. It was built on processing. It was built on industry. So at the time that the two started to conflict, now the reason why they went to war was over the land that was taken from Texas to California from Mexico. So that if you go back to our reparations, that's why I always say, first people to get reparations, Native Americans, their land that was taken. Black people built the country on the land that was taken. Third, Mexico. From Idaho to the Mexican border, from Texas to California was taken from Mexico. So that's why reparations should be in that order. When they took that third, this is how the North wanted the country broken up. Poor whites, the frontiersmen, which historians don't like to use frontiersmen anymore because it presupposes no one was there. It was millions of Native Americans there. But once Andrew Jackson took all of that land, the North wanted that land for poor whites. The business metropolitan area was the New England area, and the slave agricultural area was supposed to be the southern states, as we knew it, were the quote-unquote plantation states. Because cotton is so rough on soil, they had to constantly keep moving. They didn't know about rotation of crops and that kind of stuff. So they would basically do cotton. It wouldn't grow anymore, so they would have to move somewhere else. So they're constantly moving over and expanding because that's what they know. That's their economy. Well, the North is saying, no, that area is for poor white people. They're saying, no, we want to extend slavery. Well, the poor white people are saying, if they have black people, if they got slaves over there working for free, I don't have nothing. Now, you got to think, the United States is booming. People are coming transatlantic over to the United States. So that's where you're running into this issue of trying to identify what caused this particular rift in that caused the Civil War. And that's what the interest was, that economic interest right there. What's going to happen with this new third of the country that's been taken from Mexico? Not morality. Okay, so now we know what that land is for. We know that northern companies was definitely involved in benefiting from that. So, convict leasing. What they did with the emancipated slaves, they knew that this land, all of the labor was gone, right? And before we get to the convict leasing, let me get back to the whole North and South issue. This was not a morality thing, the fact that this was over slavery. What it was because the North had an independent economic source, and the South used their financial source to succeed and fight the North. Lincoln knew that he had to make sure that the South could never do that again. So what he did was he took what empowered them to do it, which was their money. He took their economy away from them. It was a war tactic. He had said in debates that if I could fix the Union, if I could save the Union without freeing a single slave, I would have. So I believe, as you also got to understand, that was also Lincoln who came up with the Freedmen's Bureau that took all the slaves' money and spent it on the railroad and went under within a decade or shortly over a decade. Yeah, I believe the Freedmen's Bureau started in 1865 and went under in 1874. And the money that was left, instead of settling some debt with the bank going over with the black people whose money they took, they actually ended up building the Treasury Department, which is called the what? Freedmen's Bureau. So that was not morality. That was not love. It was not Christianhood. That was an act of war, and it was a sense of permanency to keep the Union together because there was no longer two independent income sources. All right, we're going to pick it up.